Hey yo, what's up guys, Boogle here, and finally here it is, the top 5 hardest little cat stages. I know this is super late, I basically had to redo this whole video since the special cat talents and everything. So yeah, I kind of put it to the side after I had to redo it, and now here I am finally doing it. So yeah, subscribe if you're new, join the hashtag Boogle gang. There's a limited invite to the Discord down below, make sure to go join that and come and chat with me and everyone else there. But yeah, let's begin. Yo, what's up guys, Boogle here, and we are here with the top 5 hardest little cat stages. Now before we start this list, of course, I gotta point out that, of course, this list is gonna be based around level 30 units and not boosted units, and at most with a few talents taken into account, but otherwise, no boosted units will be counted in this list. It is strictly with average leveled units like level 30, maybe some level 40, but nothing above, because I know someone's gonna be like,
oh hey, but you can just use a boosted level 60 ROM and beat the stage so easily. Why is it so high on the list?
So yeah, if you see those type of clowns in the comments, send them to this timestamp. But without further ado, here we go. In at number 5 on the list, of course, we have a little cat, aka Little Mohawk. This stage is a really easy stage, but it can become troublesome if you don't have those LD units, because you can't just rely on Little Nye to solely carry the level, and you can't use the Advent Cats to bully Little Mohawk, because if you use Vendor Cat, you push him back and you move into Professor A's range. Glass Cat can help a lot, I guess. Same with Zamboni in the beginning. But other than that, you don't really have much options for this stage. It's kind of annoying to stack up in the beginning, and if you don't have a good enough stack, of course, you're just gonna get overrun. And without Thaumaturge, Mohawk does push really hard, and if you don't get those runner knockbacks and Little Nye slow procs, you're pretty much dead too. But with all that being said, it's still a pretty easy level. The only hard part in this level is finding enough stallers to take on this level, because if you don't have enough stallers to use in this level, you're just gonna get steamrolled. And yes, Cat God can pretty much destroy this stage and beat it very easily. That is why this is at number 5. But it is still more difficult than the other little cats, because most of the little cats did get power creeped pretty hard, but this one, it got power creeped just a little bit. Like with all level 30 units, if you don't get those Urunner knockbacks and Little Nye slow procs, you can lose this level pretty easily. Yes, Manic Mohawk is definitely a harder stage, but Little Mohawk is more of an annoying stage without Cat God, of course. Like, this isn't Little Cow where you could just camera spam your way out of the stage very easily. This isn't Little Titan, which got very power creeped with these special cat talents. This isn't Little Legs either, which is the easiest little cat stage in the game, and probably one of the easiest stages in the game. So that is why Little Cat or Little Mohawk is at number 5 on the list. A good setting point and a good reference point in difficulty for this list, because all of the little cats are easy, but which one is the hardest out of them in their own list? But let's move on into number 4, which is very similar in difficulty to number 5, and it comes close. These two are pretty interchangeable. But in at number 4 is, of course, Little Tank, aka Little Eraser. This one is very similar in difficulty to Little Cat or Little Mohawk, but this one is a bit more difficult because of the peons in the stage, and the stage size, and of course Eraser's stats itself. And those reasons are why I do have Little Eraser above Mohawk on this list. Yes, Eraser's HP has been nerfed pretty heavily in this stage, and it does have less HP than Mohawk, but the damage is still there. He still hits for 30k and still has around 16k DPS. And Mohawk is very easy to counter with its lower range. Of course, Eraser is very annoying to stack up against, because if you don't stall properly, if you don't have enough stallers, you just get run over. All your legends get one shot and it's a GG. Now, even though Eraser's health here has been nerfed compared with all of the other variants of this stage, like Crazed Tank and Manic Eraser, it is still a pretty lengthy level. Still only has one knockback, so it's super hard to crowd control unless you bring units like Glass and Vendor Cat and Cat God. And Cat God can of course destroy this stage just like in Little Mohawk as well, but you barely have any units to outrange Little Eraser and stand a chance. Like, you only have one source of damage output, and that is of course cycling your legends, and that could take a long time, especially if your legends keep getting one shot. Yes, Prisoner Cat is a nice option to do some chip damage over time, but it is not a super reliable decision to make for damage output against Eraser. There is little to no units that can do that, except for Uridan Wolf. Now of course, all of the Eraser variant stages are designed in one way, and that is to push back all of your stallers as much as possible, so Eraser can just one-shot all of your stacked units. And that is the same in this stage as well. There's of course the Gories. The Black Gories are back from Manic Eraser, and they do push pretty hard if you don't have Camera and Cyborg or something else to counter it. So the peons in the stage do their job very well, and that makes it to where Eraser can just annihilate everything in its path. But of course, with all that being said, this is still a pretty easy stage. You can easily beat this with level 30 units. You just gotta make sure you crowd control Eraser all the time. And a perfect way to do that is of course Sniper Cat. Unless you want to rely on RNG with Uridan knockbacks and Little Nice solo procs, that also works very well. But other than that, you just have to save your legends for each peon cycle, and if you do that, you can get by this level very easily, even though it could take up to 30 minutes. And it is very destroyable by Cat God, but unlike Little Mohawk, we could just turn into brain dead CPU spam, with Little Eraser you actually have to make sure you cycle your legends properly, otherwise you'll just get steamrolled. And that is why Little Eraser is at number 4 on the list. Now moving into the top 3, this is where things start escalating pretty quickly, because compared to the first 2 on the list here, the top 3 is very different in difficulty level. And in at number 3 we have none other than Little Lizard, aka Little King Dragon. This stage is very reliant on timing. With level 30 units and not any options at all to outrange Little King Dragon here, your only option is to, of course, a Bahamut cycle. And due to that, automatically that makes it a more difficult stage than Little Eraser and Little Mohawk, because there is no timing involved in both of those stages. Both of those stages are very manageable. Like Little Mohawk is just CPU spam, Little Eraser is just Legend Cat cycling, but Little King Dragon, you do have to cycle a legend here, but you also have to time it correctly. And if you mess up your timing in any of the cycles, it is very detrimental to the whole run, and it could pretty much ruin your whole run. The peon cycle on this stage is also very random, and it makes it very difficult to decide when to cycle your A Bahamut, because if you wait too long, the dragons are going to start stacking up. Yes, you can stack them all up and hope for A Bahamut to just wipe them all out at once, but desynced stacked King Dragons shred through everything very quickly. It is a very dangerous thing to have desynced King Dragons stacked up. If you don't kill at least 2 each time you cycle a Bahamut, it becomes a real big problem to manage them. And like I mentioned before with the random peon cycles, it gets even more difficult the later on you go in the level, especially if you aren't actually killing any dragons when you cycle a Bahamut. Another reason why this is a lot more difficult than Eraser and Mohawk is because this is not a base hit stage. This is a stage that starts off immediately with Little King Dragon pushing and the random peon cycle immediately starting. So yeah, with level 30 units, you really have no other options other than a Bahamut timing, and that is exactly why this is number 3 on the list. Now, reason why it's not higher is also because if you time a Bahamut correctly, it's pretty easy to beat the stage because that is the only threat in the stage. It is the Little King Dragons. The peons are pretty easy to handle. Like, the only reason the peons are troublesome is because it can mess up your A Bahamut cycles, but other than that, Cyborg or Camera to just wipe out the peons very easily, so they aren't the main issue. The main issue is on you. It's solely on you and your A Bahamut timing. Yeah, the peon timings can be very random and it might be very hard to find that window to send out a Bahamut, but that's exactly where the decision making falls on you. When you send out your A Bahamut, that will ultimately be the fate for you in this level. So that is why Little King Dragon is at number 3 on the list, a very big difficulty jump from Little Mohawk and Eraser. If you're not focused on the peon cycles and when they happen, and if they do happen, if you take them out quick enough and manage everything quick enough, you're gonna fall behind, and that indecisiveness is gonna be your ultimate downfall in A Bahamut cycles. So yeah, now with that huge difficulty jump from 4 to 3, from 3 to 2, there isn't necessarily a huge difficulty jump like from 4 to 3, but 2 is still in this similar difficulty range of Little King Dragon. And of course, in at number 2 we have Little Axe, aka Little Dark. Basically, this stage is Little Mohawk, Little Eraser put together into one, but it's not on base hit, which automatically makes it a lot more difficult. And of course, the peons in the stage are a lot more difficult to handle without the right leveled units. And of course, Little Dark's DPS output is very high as always, so Ramen can get demolished at level 30. And dead Ramen means of course the angel peons will interfere with your stack. Now of course, a research up combo does fix that issue pretty well even with a level 30 Ramen, but sometimes it's just not enough DPS to take out the peon waves, because once the gory waves and everything else start to happen at once, camera and Ramen aren't really enough, and you're constantly going to be fighting very close to the base, so if you mess up, it's over. There's no room for error in this stage. And of course, you have to cycle your legends in this stage. If you stack up your legends and Little Dark gets knocked back, of course, Sunfish Jones will just wipe everything out. This is a luring endurance stage, and if you don't lure enough and if you knock him back too far, that means your legends move forward and move into harm's way, eventually leading them to die. And without your legends, and without Bahamut wiping out those gory waves very easily, it is pretty difficult to handle all the peon waves with just camera and Ramen at level 30. And the reason this is above Little King Dragon is because not only is this a very tricky level with peon cycles, the peons are actually a big threat in this stage. And unlike Little King Dragon, which has no back support, you can just A Bahamut cycle on Little King Dragon and get away very easily. With Little Dark, there's a Sunfish Jones there, so if you over push too hard, you're gonna move into the range of Sunfish Jones. That means everything in there will get hit by Sunfish Jones, and that will lead to your legends dying, because the only way to deal with Sunfish Jones is after you kill Little Dark, and that can take a while depending on your legend cycles. So it is a very annoying thing to constantly have Sunfish Jones just sitting there waiting for your legends to walk into range and take a hit and eventually die. And that becomes very brutal, especially with the peon waves and level 30 units, because Vendor Cat is gonna get you killed in this stage. Glass Cat can help a little bit, but other than that, you just have to rely on Ramen and Bahamut to wipe out those peon waves. If Bahamut misses, then, I mean, you're just gonna have to wait until he attacks again or get a nice camera stack quick enough, otherwise you get pushed back way too hard. And if Sunfish Jones or Little Dark lock onto the base, it's pretty much GG, because you have no way to crowd control unless you have your cat cannon up. And you have to be ready every time you do get that damage knockback, because if you don't have your cycles set up properly, it's just gonna increase the length of the level by tenfold, because if you don't have your cycle set up properly, for every damage knockback you get on Little Dark, and when your legends die, you don't have them up ready for when you lure Little Dark back to the base again, it is gonna take a while, because the peon cycles are always constantly gonna be pushing. So just like Little Eraser, you basically have no source of damage against Little Dark other than your legends. And just like Little Mohawk, it's very easy to crowd control him, but that can be the death of you, because Little Mohawk has support with Professor A, the same way Little Dark has support with Sunfish Jones. So you're stuck in a limbo and constantly fighting this luring endurance stage right next to your base, and you have no option of screwing up. Because on Little King Dragon, if you do mess up an A Bahamut cycle, you can somehow manage by letting the Little King Dragon sync up, because synced dragons are really easy to stall against. But if you mess up on this stage on Little Dark, if you don't have your cat cannon up and if you're not close to a damage knockback, you're pretty much dead. So that is why Little Dark is ahead of Little King Dragon on the list. Peons are a lot more difficult to deal with in the stage, and the support is a lot more than just 2 doges. And of course, Little Dark himself is a very pain unit to handle against. That freeze is very annoying. That attack rate is super annoying. The DPS is super high. Level 30 units, the stage is kind of brutal. And that leaves us, of course, to only 1 unit left on this list. But before we get into number 1 on the list, here is an honorable mention. Now, the honorable mention, Little Island, this is a very easy stage, but I wouldn't say it's in the top 5 because the big threat in the level, the Super Metal Hippo, which is back from Crazed Fish, is a very easy to handle boss in the stage. And that leaves us with the only other threat in the level, which is of course Little Island themselves. And Little Island isn't too difficult to handle. Yes, with the level 30 Cyborg you might struggle just a bit, but level 35 Cyborg and Urnenwolf and Bahamut, you're pretty much set to beat this stage very easily. If the Super Metal Hippo in this level wasn't such a big joke, this level would definitely be a lot more difficult, looking at Manic Island with that Berserkery. But since it's Super Metal Hippo, it becomes just way too easy to handle him. Like, you can just stack up Space Cats in the beginning here just like Crazed Fish, or you can just go the route we went in this clip right here, which is of course Catasaurus, which completely destroys Super Metal Hippo. So yeah, the reason I do have it as an honorable mention because this is one of the few Little Cat stages that require you to have a little bit higher level units, that being level 30 plus Cyborg. Because a level 30 Cyborg will barely scrape by with level 30 Runner Wolf and Bahamut. Unlike Little Island where level 30 Camera and a Bahamut just completely destroy the stage, Little Island is a pretty good fit for an honorable mention in the stage. Now, on into the number 1 hardest Little Cat stage in this list, and that is, of course, Little Macho Legs. I'm joking, chill. The real number 1 spot is, of course, the one and only Little Flying, and this level combines all of the elements of legend cycling, a Bahamut timing, annoying peons, and a lengthy level duration. It's basically all of the Little Cats on this list combined into one, and bam, you get Little Flying. And all of the flying variant stages, Crazed Bird, Manic Flying, and Little Flying, are some of the most well-designed stages in the game. Because the peon cycles aren't RNG. If you know the cycles correctly, you can counter them very well and have a huge advantage against the stage. And that's exactly where the difficulty in the stage comes in, because if you don't manage those peon cycles correctly, your cycling and a Bahamut timing can be very off, and it could take a long time to take down Little Flying. Raindies will begin to stack up, and once they start stacking up, you already know how annoying Raindies are in Manic Flying and Crazed Bird. The Albros in this level specifically need a counter, otherwise they can become a big issue as well. Yes, you can just use a boosted Cyborg against both Raindie and Albro, but with level 30 units, Cyborg doesn't stand that much of a chance. You're gonna need Kator. And if you mess up your A Bahamut timing against Raindie and your Bahamut gets killed and Raindie stays alive, that becomes very dangerous for your whole run because the Raindies will stack up, making it even more difficult to time in a Bahamut as you go on. And not only do you have to time a Bahamut against Raindie, but you have to time a Bahamut into Little Flying as well. Because if you have no other source of damage against little flying except for a Bahamut, this level is gonna take a long time if you mess up your cycles with a Bahamut against Randy, because the ideal perfect timing for a Bahamut in this stage is to wipe out Randy with a Bahamut and not take a hit. Then you have 3 hits on little flying with a Bahamut, and that really cuts down the time in the level. Now, one horn in the stage isn't much of a threat, but more of a source of income for the stage, but if you manage that income incorrectly, you can really struggle for the latter half of the cycles. Because if you do mess up your A Bahamut timing, then you're gonna have to kill Randy somehow, and that means Cyborg cycling. And sending Cyborg every second is gonna drain your cash super quick. Now, it is pretty easy to crowd control little flying in this level. Of course, you could time a Dr. Cat if you want to be real extra, but that just adds even more difficulty onto the level. The main way to crowd control little flying in this level is of course bringing Sniper Cat power up. Since little flying only has 1 knockback, everything counts. Even your cat cannons, those do count very much. Now, I already know there's people saying,
Oh, but you can cheese the level. How is this the hardest little cat stage?
well, if you couldn't tell with all of the explanation before this, I'll say it here just in case. This is, of course, without the cheese taken into account. With no cheese and level 30 units, this stage can be a real big problem. Now, there is some other ways to get damage done to little flying, and that is, of course, cycling Kator to get hidden, and that really does help. But the main source of damage in the level is those A Bahamut cycles, and it could take a long time waiting for A Bahamut to recharge just to get 1 to 2 hits in. And if you mess up your timing, you may not even get a single hit in. And if you're not using Sniper Cat power up, you have even more timing to do with Dr. Cat cycles, and if you get those incorrect, it can become even more difficult. You can't use Vendor Cat in this stage, it won't help out as much because of course little flying isn't traitless. Vendor Cat against Randies isn't really the best idea, and there really is no other way to get consistent damage done on little flying. There's like no units that outrange little flying, very similar to little King Dragon, but just a lot more annoying peons. And it is in the same way very similar to Little Dark, but in Little Dark you do have consistent damage done to Little Dark with Bahamut and Little Neandam stacked up all the time. So that is why Little Flying is at number 1 in the list. Really just a conjunction of all the little cats in the list combined into one stage, and bam, you get the ultimate little cat stage, a very fun stage. Like I said previously, this is one of the best designed stages in the game. And that was my top 5 list for hardest little cat stages in the game. Let me know if you agreed with this list. Of course, this is my opinion. Everyone has a different opinion. Some people might have a way different list than me. And if you do, let me guys know your list in the comments below of your top 5 hardest little cat stages. But yeah, drop a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're new, of course, join the hashtag Boogle gang. Go join the Discord, link is in the description. Let me know if you want to see more top 5 videos. It's been John Boogle, and see ya.